those of you that don't know, I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the world who is also a researcher and an international author. My wife Anne has published 2 major books, Turn Back Our Age Clock and The Wealthy Body and Business, and we continue to be researching and writing material for that. We have 2 wonderful children and one not so much. No, seriously, she's crazy. She's wild, rebellious. In fact, everything I think I fell in love with about her mother. This has been recorded. And so we've really enjoyed, we love our children immensely, obviously, and really enjoyed, and it's been a privilege as well to watch them grow up. And there's also the time when they're old enough to leave home, except they don't. Some of you may relate to this. They never leave home. So my wife Anne and I decided to turn that whole children leaving home model on its head. So we packed our bags, booked a flight, and set off to explore the world. Now that was 20 years ago. And in hindsight, I'd have to say we probably should have told the kids. But they're doing real good and thriving as well. Got families of their own. We've got 7 grandchildren now, and I've been reliably informed another one on the way, which is good news, I guess. Another damn birthday to keep track of. But no, it's a great thrill. Listen, I just want to thank you all who filled in the survey as well that we sent out. Thank you for that. I appreciate the time and the honesty. I trust that went in behind that. And with your permission, if it's okay, what I'd like to do is kind of use the results of that to guide the information that we go through in the session this afternoon. Because I think there's some relevant points that possibly need refreshing, and some other points that maybe we can look at things from a different bit of angle. So in order to be the most use for you in the session, I thought that might be a good idea. Does that sound like a plan? It's a good plan, thought of it myself. So let's start off with point number 1. We're now in the health club industry. We own a big health club which we've relaunched. It's going extremely well, I have to say. And one of the things that we've been guilty of as an industry, and also the fitness industry generally, and the diet industry as well, is we've been oversimplifying the message for far too long. And for years we've been talking to people about losing weight, getting in shape, and they're saying, look, it's not rocket science. Okay, all you need to do is get more exercise, eat less food. Move more, eat less, move your legs, shut your mouth. How difficult is that really? You know? But actually, if you think about it, it is rocket science because the human physiology is possibly one of the most incredibly complex, but also marvelously capable bioorganisms on the planet. And you would know because well, you're sitting in one. You have one. Is there a problem with the mic? Sorry? So you have one of these physiologies, and it's your job to take care of it. Still go with this one? This one.
On this one!
Okay. The message is the buck stops with you. Now, I know it's complicated because it is rocket science, but know this, rocket science isn't difficult for a rocket scientist. Right? And being a human being shouldn't be difficult for human beings. So let's not make it so. There is information out there, sometimes too much information. I acknowledge that. So we need to find a way to navigate through that. So what I want to do is maybe help you with that a little bit this afternoon. Listen, you only get one body to go through this life with. And even the best minds in all the world have no place to go and no place to live if they don't have a healthy body to take them there. And as high-performance people, we should start thinking about forming long-term relationships, first and foremost, with ourselves and with our health. Because that's where it starts. That's where all your energy comes from, all your drive. Everything that you do and everything that you are comes from within you and radiates outwards. So you need to look after yourself first. Now, some people think that's a very, very selfish thing to do. But actually, if you think about it, that's probably one of the most selfless things that you could do. So take care of your body first. Don't abdicate responsibility for your health to anybody else, not your doctor, your chiropractor, your physio, personal trainer, health guru, whatever. It's your job to figure it out, and it starts and stops with you. If you get it right, the rewards are immense. And as we've heard Phil was talking before, you can enjoy such high level of productivity and energy and satisfaction and success in life if you get yourself in shape to be able to do that. If you get it wrong, however, the cost could be quite catastrophic. So that's lesson number one. Let's have a look at the survey. 1 out of 3 people on the survey were getting 3 or more sessions a week, which is fantastic. Mainly aerobic activities like walking, jogging, trekking, cycling, spinning, those sorts of things. I do a lot of weightlifting these days, but it was a time I was really into my aerobic activity. In fact, spinning was the thing I did in the UK. And you have to understand, how many people here do spinning classes? Indoor exercise cycling classes? A few, not a whole lot. You have to understand that these classes are big in the UK, and there'll be 50 to 70 cycles in a room, and they're booked out. Every session's booked out. You've got to book in ahead to get on one of those bikes. And there was a time I had like a permanent booking. I even had my own bike that I would get in there early. I put a towel on to reserve, and it's a big deal. And I had all the gear too. Much to my embarrassment, I had one of these bright yellow fluoro cycling tops, like sponsors logos I'd never even heard of. On it, and I had the cycling pants that had the padding already sewn into them, and the wee gloves, so that when you're on the bike and you get sweaty, you don't slip off the handlebars, because that could be bad, could be a bit embarrassing. So I had all the gear, and I was in there and I was rocking it, and you can imagine doing 5 classes a week, 3 months, 4 months, and then I stopped doing spinning. And it was after one particular class, the instructor came up with me and he said, "Bean," he said, everybody called me Bean. I guess it was because I had Bean embroidered on the back of the shirt that I was wearing. And he said, "Bean," he said, "great class." And I go, "Oh, yeah, thanks, mate." And he says, "You've been coming for quite a while now." So yeah, probably, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 months. And he said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "Dude," he said, "just got one question." He said, "You do realise that the padding in those pants is supposed to go at the back, right?" So I stopped doing spinning classes. Oh wait, it's all right. World Health Organization guidelines. Every adult should be doing an hour of exercise, 1 hour of exercise every day of their lives. So that's quite good. 1 out of 3 people getting 3 or more sessions. That does tell us that 2 out of 3 are not. So getting less than 3 exercise sessions in a week. And in fact, we've got 27 people in the room today who are doing none at all. So that could certainly be something that we could pay attention to and seek some levels of improvement on, I believe. Okay, let's have a look. If you're going to do exercise, where do you start? My advice, my personal advice would be start by getting strong. Build before you burn. Lift weights before you start thinking about doing anything else. Now, if you're just completely inactive and the only thing you can do is just get out and walk to the letterbox and back, and that's fine, that's a good place to start. But if you're looking at getting some serious activity, get into the gym and start lifting weights, because weight training will do a number of things for you that any other exercise format may not necessarily, but apart from things like strength-based yoga and those sorts of things. So here's some of the things we need to look at. Most of your body is made up of muscle. A key thing about muscle is that where 80% of your calories are burned by muscle. So the more muscle you have and the better shape that muscle is, the higher your metabolism will be. The rate that you burn calories will be better. Okay, so if you're trying to keep weight off, and as we age, I understand that gets harder and harder because I'm right in that place, okay? So you have to work a little bit harder, or you could work a little bit smarter. If you work structurally, or strategically I should say, on building muscle, you work on building metabolism, which means you're burning more calories every second, every minute, every hour of the day sitting in a chair than you were the day before. So that's a key strategy. Muscle is also very structural, so this enables us to maintain good posture. All right? Looking around the room, several people have good posture, which is quite good. It's part of your energy as well, okay? Because if you don't have good posture, if your posture collapses, it's very, very difficult to even draw a full lungful of air. So you just practice that. Collapse down in your chair just for a second. Just collapse down just for a second. Okay? Some people didn't even move. They're there already. Okay, so what I want you to do is just take a huge deep breath in that position, right? Like that halfway in, that's all you can get. Okay, now sit up straight and do it again. Take a deep breath in. See, now you can suddenly get a full lungful of air that you couldn't get before. So having good, strong posture is really important, because as we age, posture tends to fail. And particularly if you're only doing exercise, which is all about movement. So you're doing aerobic activity, but you're not doing anything to strengthen your upper body, you could have some problems. This is a very powerful slide. This is a comparison. This is an aging comparison. The gentleman on the right is Professor Dr. Gunther von Hagen, and he's talking about the aging process in the segment here. The lady on the left, the woman on the left is 20 years of age. The woman on the right is 80 years of age. Now, both of them, it is known, are very fit and very active. So they're doing a lot of exercise, a lot of activity. But you'll notice that there's a difference in posture or height from one to the other, of about a foot. What's not widely known is the woman on the right used to be the same height as the woman on the left in her 20s. But has lost most of her postural height just in the last 2 decades of her life. And we can see this here because you can see the position of the head in relation to the shoulders. The shoulders have come forward. And look, if we highlight this, they're same height from the hip down. So there's the hip comparison. Look at the position of the hand and the arm in relation to the hip. So you can see how her whole back has collapsed forward and slumped in on itself. Okay, so this is really important that we don't allow this to happen, because 50% of people that go into care facilities, old folks' homes, supervised accommodation, do so not because they're sick necessarily, but because they're weak. Frailty is a key indicator of a loss of independence, functional independence. So it's a key strategy to try and build this up and get strong and lift weights and correct that before it even happens. The woman in this slide is Professor Dr. Maria Fiataroni Singh, and she heads up the Human Physiology Lab at Sydney University. She did some studies with quite a large cohort of senior citizens about lifting weights. And a surprising result came out of that study. Basically, she was looking at functional strength, prevention of frailty, those types of things. What she found was lifting heavy weights cut depression by 50% in older adults. 50% in older adults. Now that's a significant result. What she also found when they dug deeper into that is that was effective, as effective in treating depression as the default medication, just lifting weights. But they have to be heavy weights. You can't just be in there falling around like lifting something like your mobile phone up to your ear. That's not lifting weights, all right? And I see men are good at lifting weights, I have to say. They go into the gym and they see heavy weights. And in fact, with men, you kind of have to rein them back a little bit. Because they'll see some guy down the back of the gym and he's like all meat and hair and teeth and one eye in the middle of his head and he's picking up these huge weights and, I could do that. Next thing you know, got appointments at the chiropractor for the next 6 months. But women tend to have, and I'm generalising, true, but women tend to have the opposite view. And so they're down the back there with like a 2 kilo dumbbell working away. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, ladies, your handbag is heavier than that. What do you think you're doing? So lifting heavy weight. Now, I find this very interesting, and there's a certain irony from my background. Some of you may know I used to be incredibly overweight and very, very lazy about it. Exercise was the last thing. And for me, the thing that caused depression in the first place was actually the very thought of going to the gym. So it could be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay, to the wrong people. But there's the evidence, and there's more and more evidence coming through that it even helps to rectify failing hormones. So as you age, your hormones are getting a little bit out of balance. Lifting weights produces or stimulates the body to produce important pro-hormones like human growth hormone, DHEA, testosterone, IGF-1, which are all part of rectifying and regulating hormones. And so there's a lot going for it. So that's my key takeaway from this is lift weights, get strong, because strong people stay young. Now some statistics here from the survey. Let's go into nutrition for a little bit. It's good to see that 2 out of 3 people mainly choose healthy food. Now I have to say, on the audiences that I do this survey with, that's ahead of the game. You guys are ahead of the game on this one, so well done. So the food consciousness is obviously there. Clearly 1 out of 3 people are not choosing healthy food, but that's not necessarily because we don't want to. Will that be a fair statement? Because a lot of people also indicated that their days were unpredictable and somewhat chaotic. So if you have no plan to go into the day, it's going to be very, very difficult to choose healthy food because you don't know where you're going to be at any time. in order to make those choices. And in fact, we found that 1 in 4 go into the day with no idea of what or when they're going to eat. So we heard the previous speaker talking about planning, about executing those plans, putting systems in place on that. So you do need to plan, and I suggest you plan your meals like you plan your meetings. So we've worked with a lot of clients hands-on, and we continue to do so. And one of my clients currently I'm working with in Auckland, if I was to ring him today, Thursday, and say, listen, what are you eating for lunch on Monday afternoon or Monday lunchtime? He should be able to look in his diary and tell me, because he will know where his meetings are and where he's going to be in the city in order to be able to access food, or if he's got to take his own food, because then that becomes a planner as well. So you should start thinking, if you're struggling with your nutrition and making those healthy choices, first thing I recommend is start planning your meals like you plan your meetings. And if it means you've got to prep food ahead of time, well, that's what you've got to do, because no one else is going to do it for you. Okay? These key strategies are things that we see missing time and time and time again, and there's a knockback reaction to this as well. I'd like to cover, there's 5 essential elements, and this is part of what we cover in our workshop, so I won't go into full detail on it, there's just not enough time today. But we've figured over a quarter of a century working in this industry and working with thousands and thousands of people that there are 5 key elements to successful nutrition. So just quickly run through them, see what you make of this. First is opting for nutrient-dense foods. So foods that have a high nutrient bang for their buck. Second thing is damage dilution and nutrition addition. So what I mean by that is, if you have something on your plate and one of those ingredients, it could be like a big helping of mashed potato, is not necessarily nutrient dense, what can you do to swap that out for something else? So damage dilution by nutrition addition. So you substitute something in there that is a nutrient dense food. And there's lots of ways you can do that with recipes. You can do that in restaurants when you're ordering food and that sort of thing as well. Simply by ordering an extra side of vegetables, for example. It's as easy as that. Raw power, so looking at raw food and whole foods, unprocessed foods, and there's a difference between cooking a food and heating a food, because it's possible to have hot food that isn't cooked to death. So those sort of strategies are really, really important. Getting 8 on your plate, meal composition, I'm going to come back to that in a second, and portion distortion, being wise about size. So if you look at all those things, and you think, well, if you work to get each one of those things kind of on track, they self-police each other. So it's all very well saying nutrient-dense foods and then loading your plate up with so many nutrient-dense foods there's not enough room on the side of the plate. But then if you're adding, being wise about size, you'll know to reduce that in. So everything kind of disciplines itself. But I want to talk about getting 8 on the plate because the survey indicated that 2 out of 3 people are getting maxing out only 2 servings of vegetables a day. Now, what's the government guidelines? Anybody tell me? Get your 5 a day. Now that's 5 fruit and vegetables. I believe that's the wrong message. It should be 5 vegetables plus fruit. But now new government guidelines that are coming out internationally, and we've seen a big trend in this at medical and nutrition conferences we attend, they're now talking about the minimum is 8 servings of vegetables a day. Fresh, organic vegetables, plus 2 to 3 servings of fruit. Now you're thinking, well, if I'm struggling to get 2 vegetables into the day, how are we going to get this amount? There are ways to do this, if you think about it, but the problem is we just don't stop to think about it. So there's ways to get these things, and the key thing with that, why is there a drive to get so many vegetables into our diet? Anyone? Well, you're missing out on nutrition. It's the vitamins, the nutrients, the minerals, the enzymes that are in fresh vegetables that are going to engage with you at a cellular level and activate the energy cells, the mitochondria, in order to produce energy in you. And if energy is a problem in our working day, then maybe this is a way that we can start sparking things up, getting more of that in. It's also really important to get more fibre in our diets. Research is showing that we're currently ingesting on our current Western diets less than 10% of the fibre we were ingesting as hunter-gatherers. So that's a big drop down. So we have to start thinking about that, and that's why we have so many problems like colorectal cancer and all those sorts of things, because we're not eating enough fibre in our diets. Fibre is very important. My wife and I, Anne, attended a conference, a medical conference and a health conference in Anaheim in California early last year. And one of the first things we do when we check into a hotel is we go and find some food. So we've got snacks, healthy snacks that we can have. And so we went to the nearest place. It was like a big hyper store. I think it was maybe a Target or something like that. And they had a supermarket in the corner. But as soon as you go in the door, they had these all these stands where there was merchandisers selling these products. And we saw this great little product, which was like a little set of steps that folded virtually flat. And you could unfold the steps and it turned into a seat. And I said to him, that's fantastic. We should get some of those. When the grandchildren come around, we've got extra seats straight away. Just pull them out of the cupboard, pop them open, and away you go. And I said to the lady, well, how much are these? And she said, oh, you can't buy these, honey. She said, but these are part of a store-wide promotion. If you buy $100 worth of goods, you get one of these free. So I thought, all right, let's go shopping. So we headed off. Before we got to the supermarket section, we thought we'd better get some protein powder. Because that's a real easy way to up the ante on protein. If you're in a different environment, just mix some protein powder in with a shake it up and knock it back, and you're good to go. And usually they sell them in big tubs, but you can get them in sachets too, so they're really good for travel. So we looked down the aisle, and there's all these tubs sitting up down the back of the shelves there, and I walked down towards the tubs. As I got closer, I realised this wasn't protein powder, these were laxatives. Seriously, these were laxatives, and they like, what's that? There's 2.5 pound. They had 2.5 pound tubs and 5 pound tubs, and not only that, but they were graded. So the bottom shelf, down the bottom shelf here, they had the product, a whole row of things that was Easy Lax. So those are for people who are just starting out on their constipatory journey. And so you could buy a 5 pound tub of Easy Lax to sort of help things along a little bit. And then the next level up, there was Opti-Lax. And Opti-Lax is obviously if you're looking for a more optimal result, clearly. And then at the top they had, which just for professionals, which was Pro-Lax. And I think, I don't know, maybe you just had to produce an ID to get one of those or something like that. Who knows? And it was all part of the store-wide promotion. There's a big sign there and said, buy 2 5 pound tubs of Opti-Lax and get a free stool. And I'm thinking, if I just bought 2 5 pound tubs of Opti-Lax, the very least I'd expect would be a free stool. And in fact, if that's all I got, I'd be on to fair go. So getting fibre in the diet is really, really important just to help things move along and keep things going on. Now, there's lots of easy ways you can get those vegetables into your diet. You can add it into things like soups and stews and casseroles. And I'm a big fan of the big pot theory. So if you're making food, just make it like once. So as the evening meal, make a great big serving of stew, of a hearty soup, of a bolognese, or whatever it is. Cram it with vegetables. Make sure it's got the right nutrition balance, and there's your meals for the next day. Easy. Put it in a container, take it to work. There's no hassle. There's no bother then, right? You could also start the day off with a vegetable smoothie. So most places that sell these things, they'll have beetroot smoothies and spinach smoothies. And we make a smoothie in the morning that's got carrot, ginger, raw beetroot, it's got spinach, it's got kale, sometimes cavolo nero. Put like a cupful of berries in it, half a banana, scoop of protein powder, blend it up. That's a full meal. And you've got 4 of your 8 a day already in the pot. And we have families that are making these for their children to go to school, their children to go to school on. Children who had never eaten vegetables before. And as a parent, you might relate to that battle that you might have on a daily basis. And guess what? When these children were going to school, starting their day on this sort of fuel, they were coming back with higher educational scores and better attention scores in their day. You could add vegetables into something as simple as a tuna salad, take that to work. You could hop out and get a takeout if you want to. Go and get a pita pit, stuff it full of salad, stuff it full of vegetables. It's not difficult to do. When you go out to dinner, get your lamb shanks, fine, just order an extra serving of seasonal fresh vegetables to go in there. It's not that tricky, but you have to make that call. You have to ask for that, okay? Or you can easily just throw together a simple stir fry. Okay, now, I just want everybody, just for a second, don't move just yet. I'm going to ask you to get out of your seats just for a second, because I don't honestly think you come into a session going to sit through a session from me, hearing about exercise, and not actually have to do some exercise. But what we're going to do is a very, very simple one. So I'm going to ask you all to stand. Now this is a really simple strategy. You can do it any time of the day. It's what we call a deep 5. So all I want you to do is just take 5 deep breaths. 5 deep breaths. Wait. 5 deep breaths. What I want you to do is take 5 seconds to breathe in, 5 seconds to breathe out in your own time. Go. Now, work your way through that. While you're doing that, bring the shoulders back as far as you can. Drop the shoulders down. Raise the chest as high as you can. Deep breath in. Feel the rib cage expand right out. Use the power of the abdominals to blow that air out forcefully over 5 seconds, and keep repeating that. Keep in good posture, open out the rib cage, fill the lungs with air, blow it out. Okay, this is a way of re-oxygenizing the system. And what we're doing is we're stimulating a process called the vagus nerve, which connects the brain, the heart, and the lungs, and the stomach. Okay, it's an internal system, kind of like what goes in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? But essentially what it does, by moving the rib cage, it's stimulating that system, the sympathetic nervous system, and it starts increasing receptors in the brain. All right, everybody relax, sit down. Now you can do that at any time during the working day, any time at all. Whether you're standing, whether you're sitting, at any time you want to do that, you can just jump into that straight away. All right, let's talk very quickly a little bit about stress. 2 out of 3 people are feeling pressure in their roles. 1 in 6 are concerned it might be affecting their physical and mental health, and that's a little bit of a concern. Okay, this is a room for highly motivated people, driven people, sometimes data-centric people, high performers, and when the stress of your day is starting to affect your physical and mental health, we have a problem. But there are a number of things that we do that make stress worse, and stress is actually just our response to a given set of circumstances. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It's not something that's going around that you can catch. Okay, it's your response to a given set of circumstances. Some things that we can do better, possibly, is get to bed by 10. 10 at the latest, and there's a reason for that. Sleep and recovery is very, very important factor of staying well and staying energized. Here's the basic thing. We have a number of sleep patterns or brainwave patterns during our sleep cycles. Sleep cycles are 90 minutes each time, and they just roll through the night. Your first sleep cycle is triggered by your circadian rhythms. So when you go to bed at a certain time and the circadian rhythms tell you to go to bed, you go to sleep, this pattern starts to emerge. So you go from active wakefulness, and then you go to pre-sleep, stage 1. Then you go down to the next stage, which is almost deep sleep, which is light sleep. Now that's when the muscles and eyes relax, all your sensory awareness is switched off, and then you drop down into your deep sleep. And that's deep dreamless sleep. Now sometimes if you get a nap in the middle of the day, you're going down into light sleep. So everything switches off, it's muscles and eyes relax, but then you can come back out of that and start off in your working day and you've got some momentary recovery. So that kind of works. But deep sleep is the closest you'll get to being in a coma. But there's also the wave pattern where you're getting the most recovery for your body. And then of course you've got rapid eye movement sleep, REM sleep, and then what happens is you go through this stage, you go through these cycles, and it cycles back around to the 90-minute cycle again. So it just repeats itself over and over and over. Now, as you go through, deep sleep in the first stage is 25 minutes and REM sleep is 5 minutes. By the time you get to the end of the night, that's switched out. So you're getting much lower amounts of deep sleep and a greater amount of REM sleep, which is why you realize that you remember your dreams just before you wake up. So the key is get to bed by 10, because that's when your circadian rhythm is triggering sleep cycle number 1 that has the biggest portion of deep recovery sleep. And that deep recovery sleep is when immunomodulators are released that go and fight things like cancer, for example. Now, if you miss that first cycle, the cycles aren't triggered because of the fact you've gone to bed. The cycles are triggered on your circadian rhythms. So that means they're triggered at a certain time of day. If you miss that cycle, if you're not getting to bed till 11, 11:30, midnight, you've missed that first recovery cycle. And it's like a train, you have to catch the next one. So that is why, that's the science behind why it's important to get to bed earlier. It doesn't matter if you have to get up earlier, if you've got a lot to do. Then get up earlier, that's fine. As long as you catch that first deep wave cycle when you go to sleep. How are we looking on that? Well, let's have a look at the stats. Okay, 2 out of 3 people are achieving 6 to 8 hours of quality sleep a night, and you guys are way ahead. So that's great to see you're getting that amount of sleep. Almost everyone's getting to bed before 11 most nights. So you're kind of catching that window. So that's the good news. Now you've got the science, and now that's validated the habits that you've already put in place. How does that reflect on a daily basis? Survey energy. 52% say they have pretty good energy to spare, and that's what I would expect from an audience like this. 45% they've got just enough energy to get through the day. That's probably a little bit of a caution, wouldn't you agree? That you've got just enough energy to get through the day. What happens when you've blocked out family time and you go home and you don't have anything left in the tank? You need to have abundant energy. And of course, we've got 5 people filled out the survey saying that they're actually bouncing off the walls. I find it interesting that 5 people also responded to the survey to say they're drinking 6 to 10 cups of coffee a day. I'm just hoping it's not the same 5 people. So here's a strategy, is reduce coffee. Now it's okay to have 1 coffee a day. Okay, research has just come out showing that if you're having 6 servings of coffee a day, you're 25% more likely to have a heart attack. 25% more likely to have a heart attack. Now that's not 6 coffees, that's 6 servings, 6 shots. I was in coffee culture in Timaru and we just ordered a green tea. The person in front of me had ordered one of these big venti cappuccino things, I don't know what the hell, and the server said to them, would that be 4 shots or 5? I'm thinking, here is someone who is not medically qualified in any way, who knows nothing about this person, basically prescribing a stimulant that could give this person a heart attack if they were at risk. So if you want a coffee, have a coffee, but make it, for goodness sake, make it a good coffee. Make it worthwhile, because anything less is just a wasted sin, okay? So have a good coffee if that's what you need, and then call it a day, because if you have to have coffees to get through the day, if you have to buy your energy in a cup, there's something wrong with that. Would you not agree? So enjoy coffee, enjoy good coffee, but know what it is and what it does. And my advice would be maybe switch to something like green tea, peppermint tea, chamomile tea if you want to relax and calm down a bit. Peppermint tea is very, very good for digestion, and peppermint tea is good for alertness as well. Also, don't drink alcohol during the working week. I'm just going to have a look at the survey here. Okay. Don't drink alcohol during the working week. It turns out that half the people in the room are drinking far too much alcohol, more than 6 servings of alcohol a week. And the other thing is, if you're not drinking alcohol during the week, don't save those credit points up for the weekend. Now, I'm not against drinking alcohol per se. You know, I've had my share of drinking alcohol. I used to live in Greymouth on the west coast. And Greymouth on the west coast got a reputation, like you could go into any household and turn on the kitchen tap and beer would come out. I used to belong to a thing called the Yard Club. And the Yard Club would meet every Thursday, Friday and Saturday night. And if you were in the Yard Club, attendance was compulsory. You couldn't miss a day. If you missed a day, you were out of the club. But no one was allowed to drink until the person whose turn it was next had sculled a yard of beer. So imagine there's quite a bit of drinking going on. The main problem with the Yard Club, though, was only 2 of us in it. And I learned a lot of lessons about the human physiology's response to alcohol in vast quantities. So yes, I still drink. I drink, you know, champagne. I'll have a glass of wine. I'll have maybe a Corona beer. I'll have a single malt whiskey I'm quite fond of. But listen, save it for a special occasion. And what do we know about special occasions? Anyone? They happen occasionally. Dinner is not a special occasion. It happens every night. And here's the key thing. Here's a wee bit of science behind this. Alcohol is by definition a neurotoxin. Okay, it's a poison. It kills brain cells. So we need to be aware of that. And what it does is a process called LTP, long-term potentiation, where the things that you experience during a day are converted in the hippocampus from short-term memories to long-term memories. Alcohol switches that process off. And it could be as much as a glass of beer, a glass of wine, a single shot of spirits. So things that happen during the day, you might need to remember a client's name, a phone number, an appointment if you didn't put it in your diary. Other things that you need to people's names, where you were, those sorts of things, that sort of thing switches off. The more alcohol you drink, the worse that condition becomes. So your capacity to retain facts, figures, important information is reduced. So that's the science behind it. I'm not against alcohol, but I'm just saying, just be aware of what it is and what it does. Save it for special occasions. It's a bit like chocolate. I used to eat far too much chocolate. Yeah. I used to eat far too much chocolate. And my wife said to me, you should really cut down. And you should cut down, and her recommendation was I should have 1 square a night. There's people in the room thinking, is your wife even human? 1 square a night. But that doesn't work for me, because knowing the way my mind works, if you were to get a family-sized block of chocolate and break the end off, you're left with one square. Okay? So you have to be quite clear on your definitions. So yes, be aware of alcohol and get a checkup. Please, please, please get a checkup. Most of you are really good. 50% of people have had a checkup in the last 12 months. That's fantastic. Another 30% have had a checkup in the last 3 years. You need to know your own internal data. I think that's quite vital. 1 out of 2 people have had a medical checkup in the last 12 months. That's fantastic. Key thing to check is homocysteine. That's a key stress hormone marker. And you can ask your doctor to do that. The DHB won't cover it. You have to pay extra for that. But that's a marker for over 50 notifiable diseases, including heart disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's. And if you're in the game where your brain capacity, your brain power is a key part of how you perform every day, this would be a good marker to include in your medicals. I get all your hormones tested as well. Excuse me. Particularly pregnenolone, progesterone, testosterone, dehydroepiandrosterone, this one in here. That's a key part of your growth hormone and a key balancer. That's the full picture. So if you get them tested, you need to have somebody intelligent enough to know that map who can give you advice about what's going wrong, because that includes enzyme activity that allows those hormones to take place. So get all your hormones checked. I'd also advise that you check acid-alkaline balance. You can do that just with little pH test strips. If you're down to your last strip, I'd recommend doing them in that order. The same if you're getting an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, and they've just got the one machine. And men, check your PSA levels. Okay, prostate cancer is a big killer in New Zealand. It's a major. So get your PSA levels checked every 2 or 3 years after the age of 40. First time I went for a prostate test, I made a booking. I went to the doctor's office and I was like, they said, "Oh, Mr. Bean, you're here for your prostate check." And I said, yes, here I am. And she said, "Oh, you do realise this is a digital examination, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good with computers, you know." Imagine my surprise. So guys, get both. Get a physical examination from your GP and also get the PSA check as well. Know your own data. See, the mission is to age well, so quality of life remains high. But what's happening is we might be living longer, but there's a difference between being alive and being kept alive. So the quality of life is actually deteriorating sooner in our lifespan rather than later. So we're just spending more of our lives dependent on medication and in misery. So the idea is to square the curve. So you actually live a great life. Some of you might remember we spoke about young Eric, who joined our health club when he was 97 years of age. He died aged 100.5. The day after he'd done a workout in the gym, he'd done his weights workout as normal, driven home, and he didn't come in after that. We said to his family, "What happened?" And basically they said, he just woke up dead. You know, it's like, that's the way you've got to go. You've got to be living life to the full, and then just it finishes. You don't want to be lingering around with sickness and illness if you can possibly help it. I'm just going to finish on this. This is my lovely wife Anne on the left, our son Justin, myself, and Justin's wife Serena. And they've been partners with us in the health club that we've started up in Timaru. Last time I spoke to you at the conference, 3 days earlier, our son Justin had a massive heart attack. And fortunately, he wasn't feeling great. Serena took him to the hospital and he went into massive fibrillation. 3 hours they were working with him. They jump-started him 47 times before he had a stable heart rate of his own. And we were right in the room next door to it. Hell of a thing to go through. Talking to him later, he made a full recovery. Talking to him later, he said he recalls drifting off into like a green space and then coming back and opening his eyes and seeing the medical team working on him hard and sweating and grunting to keep him alive, and then you drift off to this green space again. I suppose the good news out of that is that heaven probably actually is a golf course. But we're very, very lucky to have him with us and very lucky he's alive. But the thing is, you do have to pay attention to your health. Now, Justin has 2 speeds, on and off. Okay? And when he's on, he is full on. They have 4 boys, and when he was in hospital, we had to look after the 4 boys for like about 2 or 3 weeks. I'm surprised he didn't have his heart attack sooner, to be honest. But listen, have a look at your lifestyle, pay attention to it, mitigate against the circumstances that might be working against you in that, and start making some steps towards being healthier. It's been fantastic talking to you today and talking amongst you and hearing some amazing stories about the progress and the journey that people have been making. Don't get yourself into this situation. This isn't about you. People who love you, people who care for you, the people who support you. Think of them and the consequences of what happens to them if something goes wrong with you, and take some responsibility. Here's the thing, taking care of business means taking care of yourself. I'm privileged to travel all around the world, speak at different events, major conferences. I've worked with movie stars of the stage and the screen, entertainment business. I've smoked and smoked cigars and drinking whiskey with millionaires and billionaires on their private yachts, and even crossed swords with the notorious Jeremy Clarkson on matters. But here's the thing, you can have the life that you want if you want it, if you plan it, if you're diligent, if you're passionate about it. You can be anything you want, you can have anything you want in this life. But understand this, if you lose your health, you have nothing. It doesn't matter what area or what level of life that you're in. So this is about a long-term relationship with your health. It's a long-term relationship with yourself. It's about taking responsibility. You can be in control of this. So you can either take control of it or be a victim of your health. The choice, ladies and gentlemen, is yours.